We're tracking the final wave of wintry weather across Arkansas and Oklahoma. This one bringing more ice to parts of the River Valley and central and southern Arkansas. I'm 5 News Chief Meteorologist Matt Standards. We want to give you one more update before the freezing rain really moves into western Arkansas and central Arkansas. We've got some mist across the state, but the heavier stuff is across Texas and southern Oklahoma. This wave moves in throughout the evening and overnight hours. We'll maybe even have a little bit waking up tomorrow morning as well. Let's zoom into a couple places and let's track some of this ice for you. As temperatures are next to or just below freezing, we've got some rain out there, but that rain tends to freeze on surfaces right over the Red River, a little bit thicker once you get into North Texas too. We're watching these waves come in. However, it looks like it's snowing in Fort Smith and in the mountains, and time right now for this update is just between 4 to 5. We're expecting this. A lot of this is not reaching the ground. What we're looking at are these clouds that are putting out some snowflakes, but a lot of them are evaporating right before they hit the ground right now, but that's probably going to change into the rest of the evening hours. Here's a look at some fine resolution data, because a lot of these raindrops are going to be on the smaller side. You know, we've had larger raindrops in some of the previous systems. These are going to be smaller, but the smaller ones, there's kind of two catches. They're smaller so they don't have as much water in them, so less water, less to freeze. But on the flip side, smaller water driplets can freeze more easily. It's like taking an ice cube tray. If you got big places for ice cubes with the water, it's going to take a lot longer to freeze than the smaller ones. And that's going to be the same case as this light freezing rain moves in. We're expecting pretty much a thin glaze everywhere, but once you head south of I-40, we could try to get maybe 1/10 of an inch of ice, maybe even up to 1/4 inch of ice. Those who get up to 1/4 inch of ice, especially south of Poto, south of Greenwood, and south of Paris and Boonville, that's where we have the biggest chance for power outages. We have a power outage map that we want to show you here in just a moment, but we are tracking some more of that freezing rain moving in. The heavier stuff will come in after sunset this evening, but we're already watching that mist in parts of Poto. You can see it kind of skimming the radar. You have to look really closely on some of these pellets, but we have some over Mount Magazine. We've got some on the south side of Fort Smith. We had a little batch there towards Salisaw and Brushy, headed towards Mountainburg, and we have a little bit more in Waldron, headed south to Tallahena too. Here's from the National Weather Service. I think this creates a beautiful picture on how much we're getting. If you see that light purple kind of bluish color, winter weather advisories for Sequoia, Crawford, Franklin, Johnson counties, and then towards the north, Madison and Washington counties, and Adair County too in Oklahoma. This is where we're going to get maybe a light glaze. And there could be some slick spots across Benton County and Carroll County, but notice they're not included anymore. But we could get that light glaze across many of the mountaintops of northwest Arkansas and even portions of the River Valley along I-40. Once you head south of I-40, though, that's when the thicker ice possibility is going to be just a lot greater. We've got winter storm, or ice storm warnings, I should say. Latimer, Haskell, LaFleur, Sebastian, Logan, and Scott counties. That's where we have the ice storm warning. That's where the ice will be the thickest, and a lot of this will be kind of south of, you see the terrain here, south of Sugarloaf, south of Poto Mountain, south of Kavanaugh, south of Mount Magazine. Once you get really into the Ouachitas, that's where we're expecting more of that significant ice, and the ice storm warnings extend all the way eastbound into central Arkansas. Notice how they just balloon over time. We've got some cold air trapped in. We've got more moisture to work with once you get towards central Arkansas, Little Rock, Conway, east, as you head towards Memphis and even closer to El Dorado and Hot Springs, Pine Bluff. That's where we're expecting even more ice to occur. The farther north and west you go, yeah, temperatures are cold enough, but we don't have as much moisture to work with, so there's less water to even freeze in the first place, and that's why you see that drop off. But southern River Valley, that's where we're watching most of the ice. Now, overall, it looks like the ice chances have gone down just a little bit compared to even yesterday, so that's some good news. But we are watching that ice that's going to be coming in across the state of Arkansas. I'm going to repeat this. We're going to go kind of a couple hours by a couple of hours. Let's start back at the beginning. 6 o'clock, we're watching more of that heavy freezing rain across Hot Springs and Little Rock. It's going to be a little bit lighter in the River Valley, closer to the Arkansas River. But then overnight, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, it's going to thicken up and it's going to be a lot heavier. Memphis, we're expecting some of that ice. Pine Bluff and Poto, Waldron, Greenwood will be getting the ice too. Notice in the northern quarter of the state, we don't have as much. We're going to have more clouds. There could be some patchy freezing mist, which, as we've learned this week, can really cause a lot of problems too. It's harder to see if there's just a little bit less, but just enough to coat. We'll watch that in northwest Arkansas, but the heavier ice is expected in Poto and Paris and Boonville. Now by tomorrow morning, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, we'll start to warm temperatures back up, and notice how the greens start to erode the pinks. That's that rain starting to take over. Once we get temperatures above freezing, we go back to just rainfall rather than so much ice. So what's next? We're watching that light freezing rain move in. It could become a little bit heavier for parts of central Arkansas and the southern river valley. When we say the southern river valley, you got to get away from the Arkansas River. You actually start to go back up in the terrain once you get to Scott County, southern Sebastian County, and even Logan County and LaFleur County. You start to get that beautiful terrain as it kind of builds back up towards the south, and that's where we're expecting more of the ice. I tell you what, some good news. You got to throw some good news in there, right? Some breaks of sun are expected by tomorrow afternoon and evening, especially the farther north and west you live as this system exits. Then by Friday, all of us should have that sun. So that'll be some good news. We're going to be melting the roads pretty quickly. All right, ice forecast. How much are we expecting across the natural state? We've got a series of colors. The light pink shows you where the thin glaze is going to be likely. Where we didn't see as much of the ice on that FUTURECAST that we were just showing you, where we've got drier air, so less water to work with. Thin glaze across much of northern Arkansas, even for northwest Arkansas. Once you get into the Boston Mountains, though, just because we're a little bit closer to those clouds anyways, you have less room for those little water droplets or little ice pellets to evaporate or just to kind of melt away real quick. That's where we could get a little bit more ice. Once you head south of the river again, south of the Arkansas River, maybe 0.1 inch of ice for Fort Smith. That's a good glaze. Now, we're not talking about maybe a 1/4 inch like we were thinking yesterday, but 0.1 can still do a lot of problems, give us a lot of headaches going into your Thursday. Poteau, about 0.1 inches, maybe a little bit more on Kavanaugh Hill, and then east into Greenwood and Paris, about 0.1 inches. But once you head south of Boonville and from Mansfield south, Midland, Hartford south, Poteau south, Heavener, Worcester, Howell to Salahina, that's where we could get 0.2 inches or more. There could be a few spots that even try to run up towards 0.3 or 0.4 deep into the Ouachitas. You get into Scott County, Waldron, south to Mena, we could be getting more of that ice, and then even more once you head into North Texas. North Texas is really in it right now, and they'll continue to get it tonight, but that's where maybe the biggest ice totals will be. Little Rock, Conway, about 0.1 inches, and then once you head towards Hot Springs, we may start to get a little bit more once you get into some more of that terrain and we get a bit colder. Closer look at the western half of the state. About 0.1 possible in the mountains, and then the southern river valley. The farther south you go, the more ice you can get. Once again, that even 0.1 inch can cause a lot of headaches waking up tomorrow morning. That's more than a thin glaze. That can cause more accidents. So be on the lookout waking up tomorrow morning. Check in with meteorologist Zach Scott. He'll have an update. And then we've got both Stevens out. We've got meteorologist Stephen Abshire, Northwest Arkansas, letting us know how the thin glaze shaped up. And then we're going to have meteorologist Stephen Elmore. He'll be in the River Valley. We're probably going to put him in Fort Smith or Greenwood. We're still looking at a couple things with logistics right now, getting crews into place. But we could also have minor to moderate power outages. I think for much of Fort Smith and Van Buren, there could be some small power outages. If some trees get maybe a little bit more ice on others and try to knock some lines out, we've got minor power outages expected. Farther south, Boonville, Greenwood, and Poteau south, more moderate power outages could be possible. Just thicker ice in general is something that we'll have to watch. How about the roads, though? Let's talk about their impact. The farther south you go, the thicker the ice is going to be. Most likely just more problems on the roadways. But I think area-wide, anywhere in Arkansas could have more of those slick spots tomorrow morning. Just really centralized, though, in the Ouachitas and the southern river valley, and then in around Little Rock and Conway. But I tell you what, even today we had a lot of melting occurred. By Thursday afternoon, especially once the sun starts to come out a little bit. Now, everyone's going to get it, but some of us will. We're going to have some serious melting, and temperatures will be back near 40 degrees later into the afternoon. That should really help things out. We're going to have a lot of melting. Whatever doesn't melt Thursday is probably going to melt on Friday with temperatures near 50 with lots of sunshine.